Hey, it's Celeste, and I'm here for a Saturday Bookish chat. It's Saturday, May the 21st, and it's like the afternoon. Behind me, I put up one of the tapestries that I got from my Unplugged book box, so I thought I'll put it up and I will film in front of it and see how I feel about it. And like from the viewfinder of the camera, I'm digging it. Like it looks like I'm in this really cool library situation. Like there's a study, like there's this desk thing over here, and there's like these plants and the book rack or whatever over here. Like I'm kind of digging it. Like it's cute. A little different, a little brighter. So, because I have to go find a place to hide and film because everybody in my household is like watching things, doing things, and I just don't need that noise. Okay. Anyway, enough about the house. What's been going on this week as far as like reading for me? Let me grab this. I finished last night, before I went to bed, I finished Manhunt. Like I told myself, I was like, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to keep reading it until I'm done. I'm not going to stop until I'm done. I'm going to finish this damn book. I gave it 2 stars, but not because of, you know, trans issues or like really even issues as far as the gore and the horror aspect, because it's a horror novel, so, you know. It just really wasn't well written. There was some problematic thought processes, dialogue, and whatever, like that I just had a hard time with. It really took me out of like any enjoyment I had. I will say that the last third of the book was more enjoyable for me. Not enjoyable itself, but more so than the first 2/3, because it was more action-packed, and so there was less time for the problematic stuff. I'll say another thing is like, sometimes when you read a book, you get anytime you read a book, really, you get a sense of the author. Like you can't, like an author has to be really skilled and really, like I'm not even sure what they need to do in order to not have themselves in their writing. Like that's just a thing that happens in writing. And so sometimes you can tell that an author is in love with their characters or in love with their world that they're writing, and that came through in the end for Manhunt. There's a lot of death, right? Like it's a horror novel, so yeah, there's gonna be a lot of death. Like you know that going into it, and it's like post-apocalyptic, so yeah, like death, that's a given. Like trigger warnings not needed because you know. But then when there's specific death and it's written in such a way that the author wants you to have like these reactions and emotions that, you know, they want you to have those emotions. I guess I'm a contrary argumentative girl because I don't want to have those emotions just because you tell me to. Like, don't tell me to smile and don't tell me to feel things. You know? So yeah, like there was characterization issues, there was problematic ideas and things. I was, you know, and like one thing that got me is like there's a death. Actually you don't even see it on page. There's a talk of a death of like a real life person, and I'm not going to say the name because I feel like if you want to Google it, you can Google it. In fact, if you Google this book, that's one of the headlines that comes up. So I knew before I even started reading that would be in there, and so I was a little underwhelmed because it wasn't on page. It was just talking about it, and it was like it read like revenge fantasy. And I mean, it's cool if that's what you got going, have your revenge fantasy, but like, does it need to be published and do I need to read it? No, not really. Like, I get where they're coming from, but I don't know. It wasn't something I had to have or I needed. Like, it's enough for me to see that garbage people are garbage. Not garbage people like waste disposal employees, but like people who are garbagey, trashy, nasty, yucky people are going to be that, and I don't need to, you know, want to exact justice on them. Like, it'll come. There's processes, there's, you know, like court of public opinion, things like that. So I don't feel the need to come after people. But maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just part of my personality. I don't know. So anyway, but that person, that particular person, wasn't the only person in real life that was mentioned. There were some others that were mentioned, and they weren't mentioned in particularly flattering ways, but they weren't dead or killed, or I don't know how you want to put that. What happens to me when I read apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic stories is that my brain starts going, right? Like I already mentioned, I'm argumentative. So like I'm start thinking of like the science of it, you know, like how does this work? Like where's the level? How do we know? What? Like let's test this, right? Like when does this happen? Like how many hours does it take? Like how does it truly affect you? Like would there be a way to like cure it? Or, you know, like I guess that's part of how my brain works. I also think about like, and this is maybe like me, or maybe because like the Texas-centrism like of Texans, but like how are things going in Texas? Like, you know, like in the Hunger Games, I was like, what district are we in? And I legit looked it up because, and I don't know if that's a Texas thing or like people who just really identify with their regions or whatever. But yeah, so like when I was reading it, I found myself wondering like, how did Texas do? And yeah, I feel like my prediction based on the world that's created in the book is that there'd be a lot of gunfire. So, whew, anyway, okay, so I'm glad to be done with it. Am I glad that I read it? Yeah, I guess I'm glad I read it because then now I know, and I probably won't read from this author again. I don't think her writing is up my alley. So, I don't know about that. Like the next one would have to be like, I can't even speculate as to what it would have to be. Okay, cool. But, so, didn't really enjoy that. But, I will tell you, I did enjoy the other book that I finished yesterday. I finished 2 books yesterday. So, the other book that I finished yesterday is Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. You see, it's one of my Book of the Month picks. The cover, by the way, this cover is so pretty. Like, I really like the color scheme. Oh, look, the back of it. Oh, it's pretty. Like the Naked book has these like gorgeous blues. Yeah, like I'm a big fan of the color blue. So Black Cake is about characters. It's multi-generational. So it's about characters from the different generations of this family. And it is in it's not specifically Jamaica, but like the story originates with characters that are in like sort of a pseudo Jamaica in the Caribbean. Some of it takes place in London, some of it takes place in California, okay, the different generations of people. And when you're reading it, you're jumping from person to person, a little bit of their perspectives and things. And for some writing and some books and some stories, that can be quite jarring. I would say no on this one. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. Like, this is a 5-star read for me. I'm also really impressed because it's Charmaine Wilkerson's debut. It's a debut novel. Not saying it's perfect. Like, there were some like criticisms that can be made for it, but for me it was like I really enjoyed it, and there's a lot of topics that are hit on, and it's meaningful, but it's, you know, but it's sort of like ripples on a pond. So there's like topics that are hit on that are like more centralized, like that are like really you have to face those topics, and then others and others and others based on what's happening with the different characters. So it all weaves together is what I have to say. Like, that's what gets me. And I would say, and I said this on my Goodreads, years ago, I read some Jonathan Franzen, and I didn't really like it, but he does a great job with like creating these characters, and they're very authentic, and they are very, and they mix with each other. Like it's not just like one character here and one character here. And that's something that I appreciate, because like in contrast, when I think of Manhunt, there were lots of characters, but they weren't all fleshed out well enough or within a certain equality. And so you find yourself not connecting with some, or just seeing some as like a stereotype. In Black Cake, that wasn't really the case. They functioned in the story, in the plot, like people. You know, flawed people who do good things, people who do things that you criticize. And that's what I kind of like, is that all that gray area in there, because and this probably sounds really vague because I'm trying not to spoil it, but it's they make their decisions, and then they live with their decisions, and then their descendants have to live with their decisions. And I know, like, someone might not agree with it, but it's done, it's there. And I think that sort of that gray area is part of what makes the characters so authentic and so real. And I did also like the way that it ended. Like, sometimes the ending, it kind of seals the deal for me. Like, the ending of Manhunt was not it for me. Like, I didn't care for that ending. And so, again, so yeah, like that's the last glimpse you see of a piece of writing. So you're like in with that. I will also say that when I read Black Cake, I did use the audiobook. So I would read along, like, so I'd listen to the audiobook in the car when I couldn't read along, and then I would skim it when I got home, and then when I finished it, I was reading along with the physical book with the audiobook. And I think that was really good, because the audiobook narration was really well done. The accents were appropriate, and I just think that really like enriched my experience with the work. So I'm really, like, over the past 10 years or so, I'm really embracing all the different ways that there are to ingest works of writing. And I think that including audiobooks, whether you're reading the audiobook on its own or you're using the audiobook and the physical book, I think that's a real enriching way of, like, I don't know, dealing with the reading, dealing with the material. And in some cases, it makes it even better. I used the audiobook to read Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I loved it. I think I 4-starred it. It was really good. I really loved it. It was great. It uses a full cast for the audiobook. I have a friend who's reading it strictly physical, and she said she's struggling in it, and I was like, yeah, because sometimes an audiobook really, like, a book really lends itself more to, like, the audio of it versus the written page. And that might be one of the cases for that. So that's one of the recommendations I would say, is if you're going to pick up Black Cake, and especially if you start reading it and you just really can't get into it, try using the audiobook along with the physical book. And that's, you know, that's one of the ways in which I would say. So, like, that was, like, the big things going on in my reading this week. I finished, like, a Piddly Little Romance earlier in the week. Last night, I read a few pages of The Heart Principle by Helen Hoang. I didn't bring it in here with me to show you guys, but, I mean, it's pretty popular. It's the third in sort of, like, that romance. They're kind of like it's like a series, but it's like kind of companions, because you don't really have to, you should read them in order, but you don't really have to read them in order, and you don't really have to read all of them. Anyway, I read a few pages of it, haven't gotten really far enough in, but Helen Hoang's writing is not writing that is really, like, jarring or troubling for me, so I'm not too worried about it. I'll get it, like, I'll read a few more pages here in just a little bit. And I'm still working on The Well of Ascension and My Fine Fellow. So, yeah. And I'm working on my Book of the Month books, trying to really, like, get more of them read. So, having finished Black Cake, which is one of my Book of the Month books. That puts me at 9 of 12 books. I've read 9 of 12 books for the reading challenge. I've completed all the debuts. I've completed the page pusher. Like, I don't know if you guys can see this. Is it going to show up? Yeah, so here's where I stand on that. Like, there's some of the books. So I just need to, like, keep going on those. The Heart Principle is one of my Book of the Month books. Oh, here, I can show you. Like, here it is. Da-na-na-na. See, y'all recognize that. And that's one of my Book of the Month books. So that will be, I guess, number 10. So, yeah, that's something that I've got going. I also want to pick up Razorblade Tears. I did one of those, I kind of do those, like, unofficial, like, try a chapter things. I did read a few pages of it, and I think that it's a world that I could really, like, just dip into, because I think that the rural Virginia, setting really translates well to my experience in rural Texas, and so some of the issues that are within the book. So, that'll probably be within those 3 books that'll help me get to that goal. And then Book of the Month has set it this year to where there's another goal where you read like 12 more books. So it doesn't matter. As I sit here on May, 21st, I have read 51 books for the year 2022. Last year, I finished up with 118. So I think I'm about on track to do that. Like, I'll probably hit my 100 and then some, whatever. But I really am less worried about the number of books and more concerned about getting through my Book of the Month books and reading, like, some of these long works that I've sort of shied away from, like, those Brandon Sanderson books and what have you. So there's that. Okay, so that's my rambling bookish chat for today. Kind of talking about what's going on in these books and what's going on with my reading and whatever. Let me know if you are reading Manhunt, you've read Manhunt, you're going to read Manhunt, or you're not going to read Manhunt. Also, if you are thinking about Black Cake, or, you've read it, or you think you want to read it, we can, I don't know, I could talk in the comments more specifically. How's your reading? Do you have a reading challenge? How's it going for the year? That kind of thing. So anyway, I will stop this here and I will see you guys later. Bye.